Question. At that moment, while Jesus is on the ground, was there one scintilla of doubt in that room who the leader was? Like, what's the problem with saying that mutual submission defines leadership rather than nullifying leadership? Why can't humility and servanthood and love and sacrifice stamp the meaning of leadership? Govern it, control it, rather than killing it. Well, it can, and it does. And what I want to talk about in these weeks is what that looks like when leadership, headship, acts that way, is affected that way. What we have in Ephesians 5 is a crystal clear distinction between the role of the husband as head and the role of the wife as one who submits to, exalts in, glories in, partners with that headship. It is a recovery of Eden. Headship and submission did not originate with the fall. I've preached a sermon on that in this church from Genesis 2 and 3, and I've decided not to include that in this series. If you want to see it, you can go get it. I'm just going to assume it. Headship and submission did not originate with the fall. What the fall did, the sin of Adam and Eve, was corrupt it and ruin it and turned it into something very ugly and very horrible in two different directions for both men and women. What it did for headship was to destroy the humble, loving headship into either hostile domination and abuse or lazy indifference with a can of beer and a bag of chips till 10 o'clock, and then he asks for sex. Thank you for your help with the dishes and the house and the kids. And you want sex? So you can either be an abusive abuser of headship, or you can be a lazy neglecter of headship. I thought when I came to the pastorate 27 years ago, this would be my main problem. I would be dealing with women who are coming to me about abusive husbands. Well, there are those. More than we know, probably. That has not proved to be the main problem, just because of our Christian culture. The main problem is women with broken hearts that their husbands don't lead, don't take any initiative. What it did to submission was also one of two things. It took willing and happy and creative and articulate and intelligent submission and turned it either into a manipulative groveling or obsequiousness, or you drop the handkerchief. Oh, can you pick that up? I can't bend down. That silly caricature of femininity. Or the brazen, stark, uppity, nobody's opening the door for me kind of rejection of headship. There is a redemption. What happens in Ephesians 5 is that these distortions of headship and these distortions of submission are redeemed. They're redeemed by the man being told, bring your headship into conformity to Christ's way of loving and leading and providing for and protecting His church. And to the wives, bring your submission into conformity to what Christ calls forth from the church. And it isn't either of those things. In other words, what's happening in Ephesians 5 is the recovery of Eden. How it was supposed to be before sin turned men brutal or passive and turned women into helpless know-nothings or strong, brazen, get out of my way, I don't need a man in my life anyway, proud domination. There is another way. In other words, what's happening here is not the dismantling of something sin created, it's the rescue of something sin distorted. And it's beautiful when it happens. Let me give you two definitions of headship and submission, and we'll be done. Tell you where we're going to head next time. Here's my definition, and this needs to be defended next week and illustrated next week. What does headship mean? Here's my definition. Headship is the divine calling of a husband to take primary responsibility for Christ-like servant leadership, protection, and provision in the home. Every word counts in that definition. I'll read it again. Headship is the divine calling of a husband to take primary responsibility. I'd love to just start unpacking them right now. For Christ-like servant leadership, Lionhearted leadership, and protection and provision in the home. Now here's what submission is. I commend it to you women as something I believe you're made for in various kinds of relationships, but especially in marriage. Submission is the divine calling of a wife to honor and affirm her husband's leadership and to help carry it through according to her gifts. Read that again. Submission is a divine calling of a wife to honor and affirm her husband's leadership and to help. She's called a helper. And to help carry it through according to her gifts, which may surpass his in many ways. So a good deal is at stake here, husbands and wives, single people, old people, young people. A good bit is at stake here, and I hope you take it seriously, whether you're single or married, and whether you're old or young. What's at stake is not just the fabric of society and the endurance of civilization. What is more importantly at stake is the revelation of Jesus Christ in his relationship to the church. Marriage is a drama, a copy, a parable, a metaphor of something greater than itself, and the world desperately needs to see it. Let's pray. Father in heaven, mainly what we men need right now is to see the wonder of this, just to feel the high calling of Christ-like servant leadership, protection, and provision for our families. The display of Jesus Christ to our children and our wives by how we lead them. the display to the world